Hello, kia ora, I'm Philip Duncan. Thanks for joining us. We are tracking a tropical cyclone forming around Vanuatu and New Caledonia, and it's going to directly head towards New Zealand this weekend. And we're pretty confident of that, except we do think it will fall apart as it gets into the New Zealand area, but that means it's going to dump a lot of rain, and there's a chance for damaging winds as well. But more rain is probably the main headline for New Zealand. Here it is forming at the moment. So at the time that we recorded this, it wasn't named, but it's likely to be named today, Wednesday, by the Fiji Met Service. And speaking of Fiji, it was 24 degrees at 7 o'clock this morning in Suva. That's pretty normal. But it was 23 degrees with 90% humidity in Auckland at the exact same time. So pretty rare that at 7 in the morning, Fiji and Auckland share basically the same temperature, but that's the setup we've got at the moment, very humid. Now the other feature is this cloud out here, driving in more rain to the west coast. As this storm drops southwards, it's going to trigger even more rain in that side of the country. So it's a bit of a double whammy again with rainfall, and the North Island and the west coast are both in for a fair amount. So we'll talk about that in a second. Over in Australia, a bit of a front moving through here at the moment, and a couple of storms up in the northwest. Otherwise, actually quite dry, considering we're in a La Nina summer. So here is a close-up of where this storm is forming. You can very clearly see it on the animated wind map. So it's getting a more developed center to it. Look at this airflow here coming out of the equator, straight down and into this low, and then it drops down. So as this comes down, all of that humid air from the equator comes down towards New Zealand. So this is definitely a tropical event. And here is a close-up of it as it starts to form. It is just south of Port Vila. So that's the good news. It's going to move away from you as it starts to intensify. New Caledonia, they're used to a few of these storms, so it shouldn't be too problematic up there in the tropics. But it does depend on how long it lingers, because it could get quite deep quite fast, so worth keeping an eye on if you live in either of those places. Here's the rainfall for New Zealand. This is the 2-day rainfall starting from today, Wednesday. So the North Island, not much. The areas in yellow are showing 10, maybe 15 millimetres down here around Fielding and northern parts of Vanuatu. But the real rain is over here on the west coast, where we're talking about 150 millimetres again falling over the next couple of days. And Southland, you might get a little bit of wet weather. I know you need it. You're the driest region in New Zealand now. So a bit of wet weather, but not very much coming through for you. This next map's a little bit more interesting. This is the 3-day map from Friday, so it covers Friday, Saturday and Sunday. This is showing the North Island impacted by that tropical low or ex-cyclone, and the rain out in the Tasman that's also pushing in with it. So not much rain for the lower half of the South Island. A bit of rain up here in the north, around 40 to 60, 70 millimetres. But the North Island, most of the North Island is around about the 60 to 125, 150 millimetre mark. So there's a lot of rain coming in across this area here. The very north of New Zealand, a bit more borderline, because most of the rain's going to come in and then around like that. So a fair bit is on the way. Let's take a look at it here and try and get a bit more sense around what is happening. Here is Thursday's setup. So note the air pressure, 979, deepening quite quickly, moving in towards New Caledonia, and then Noumea actually could be quite exposed to a direct hit or a very close hit to it. It then heads down to New Zealand, and you see what I mean? There's this other rainmaker. So this is linking up with that rainmaker in the Tasman, and that's why we're seeing that heavy rain showing up there. That's why we're likely to get some big totals. By the way, apologies, I've left the key off the maps today, but I will talk you through it, don't worry. So we get to Friday. We're seeing a bit of pale blue here. That's really just showing a few showers around. So Friday, drizzly, showery, but not necessarily raining all day long, but very humid. This red line coming down is an indicator of all that tropical air starting to drop down. Notice the air pressure, by the way, now 968, dropping very quickly, but also moving away at the same time from New Caledonia. Into the weekend now. So the storm's deepened a little bit further. Quite impressive on the map. Norfolk Island, Australia, being impacted by it as it brushes past you out at sea. But you can also start to work out why maybe the very far north and those northeastern areas might not get the same rainfall totals as further south. The blue you're seeing here with the purple around it, that's talking about 150 millimetres in 24 hours. As we go through on this map here on Saturday. So that's a lot of rain. And up in the mountains like Mount Taranaki could go further than that. You can sometimes times the rainfall of New Plymouth by 3 to work out what's going on up in the mountains. So a lot of rain coming through here on Saturday. Slips and flooding and road closures are all a possibility. Then we come into Sunday, and the storm's weakening now as it comes in. High pressure down here to the south, and another block of high pressure out here to the east. So this storm is going to fall apart, but you've got areas with gales around it, gales through central New Zealand potentially, and still some heavy rain in here, still 60 odd millimetres coming through on Sunday. So over in Hawke's Bay, you might get 75 millimetres down at sea level and maybe 120 millimetres up in the mountains. So most of that rain, Taranaki to Hawke's Bay, those look as though the area is most exposed. The pale blue in the north, the pale blue in the south, 5-10 millimetres, not a huge amount. So let's get into next week. There's a bit of a change here, a slight one. The low itself weakens. Now some modelling shows it coming in on this side, which means that you go from that northerly to a southerly. Depends on which way, exactly where this low comes on in. But either way, still pretty humid weather as we go through into this map here. And then our final one for Tuesday of next week shows that low falling apart, but the red line retreating a little bit further north. It's still going to be humid, but not quite as humid as it has been. This will fall apart, but we've still got a northerly flow coming down across the country, and not necessarily a lot of high pressure rolling in behind it. There's no great big high on the map to calm things down. But this is the weather pattern that we should have had all across January, but we did not get it in New Zealand because we had high pressure blocking it. Now this is a more normal La Nina setup. So this is kind of classic textbook La Nina weather right now. So we've got a cyclone on the way. It's likely to fall apart. We're going to have daily updates on this, at least at weatherwatch.co.nz. So we'll see you again tomorrow with our next update.